we have talked about the network ID, which is the portion of an IP address that is part of the network. And then we've talked about the network address, which is the network ID followed by zeros to fill out the rest of it. So a network address that we had, for example, was like this: 192.168.0.0, 255.255.255.0. Now we know from this that from these 255s here that this portion of this network address is the network ID. So the network ID is a portion of the network address. The network address itself, of course, is 192.168.0.0. This whole thing, let me go back to black here. This whole thing is the network address. So what I haven't defined is, what do we mean by the network address? Well, let me create a bunch of addresses. Now I'm going to ignore here the 192.168.0 because that is, we know that that is the network ID. So I'm just going to concentrate on this 0 right here at the end. And I'm going to fill in a bunch of addresses. We're going to go 192.168.0.0, 192.168.0.1. In fact, I'll put a dot in front of them just to make it clear that I'm doing this last octet, and that's what I'm putting here, is that last octet. Dot 2, dot 3, dot 4, and so on. And this is going to continue all the way up until we get to dot 255. And that would be the last possible address on this network, because this network can only house hosts from 0 to 255. Well, I lied a little bit. It doesn't actually house hosts from 0 to 255. It actually houses 256 different addresses, but 2 of those addresses are not allowed to be used as hosts. And it turns out that this first one is one of those, and that's because it is the network address. So it is reserved and it cannot be used as one of the hosts on this network. Now there's one other that also cannot be used as a host on this network, and that is this last one down here. This one is what we call the broadcast address. So the broadcast address also is not allowed to be used as a host. So as far as hosts go, what do we have left? Well, we have everything in between. Everything from here all the way up to 254 over here at the end. I should make that the same color as the rest of them. 254 at the end. All of these are valid host addresses. Now, this is going to stay true when we start subnetting. So let's say that I subnet this network and I make 2 networks out of it. 192.168.0. I'm going to do 0 to 127 will be one network. Now don't worry about the subnet mask at this point. I would have to change the subnet mask, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. The other network is 192.168.0.128 to 255. So I've got 2 networks here. Network number 1 and network number 2. Well, the first network, 0 to 127, once again, we have the .0, .1, .2, .3, all the way up to .127. On the second network, we have .128, .129, .130, .131, and all the way up to .255. So now what's going on here is, what's poisoned again? Well, we find that this is poisoned because it's the network address. So 192.168.0.0. This one is the first address on another network, and so it's also poisoned. This is the 192.168.0.128. Now, what do I mean by poison? What I mean is I cannot use it as a host address. Same thing over here. .127 is a broadcast address, and it's 192.168.0.127. And then this one down here is also a broadcast address, 192.168.0.255. So now I've got two addresses that are network addresses and two addresses over here that are broadcast addresses. So every time I split my network up into smaller and smaller networks, I lose two more addresses, two more possible hosts. So we just have to live with that fact that every time we subnet, we lose more hosts to network addresses and broadcast addresses.